We got some bad news about Ryan Nembhard, but you know what? We're Wildcat fans. We're going to live this one together. Let's get started here on Locked On Wildcats.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats. I'm your host, Mike Luke. All right, we have got a lot to get to this show. We've got a lot to get to this show, and first we got to start with Ryan Nembhard. Ryan Nembhard was a player that Tommy Lloyd put all of his eggs in this basket, essentially. And not only did he put all of his eggs in his basket, he said, I'm going to. We don't need to recruit a lot of guys. We need to be able to just get the guys that we want, and when we get the guys we want, we should be able to make it work from there. It's always been a unique recruiting strategy for me because you don't offer a ton of kids, which is fine. It's definitely a departure from what a lot of coaches do, but again, he doesn't offer a lot of kids. That's cool, whatever. But when you don't offer a lot of kids, you have got to hit on those kids. And not only do you have to hit on those kids, you've got to hit on a very, very high percentage of these kids. And when you hit on a high percentage of these dudes, you'll be good. But again, when you offer guys like this and you don't give them, or you don't get them, you're left twisted in the wind right there. And you're not only are you left twisted in the wind, it's a look where you don't look like you're prepared here. Now, again, we need to be careful here because, again, Tommy Lloyd has done a great job here his first 2 years. I think it's fair to say that he does a very good job of coaching talent, developing talent. But at the same time, I think you also got to start wondering, though, about his ability to be able to read the kids that he's recruiting. Because again, I want to, before we get into this, I want to say all love to Jack Murphy because Jack Murphy does a great job here at the U of A. And I have no doubt that he's the right guy for the job. You look at it, he's recruited Jamari Phillips, he's recruited Carter Bryant, he's recruited Kylan Boswell. Murph's done a good job here. The rest of the staff, though, is I think Arizona can do a little bit better than, just to be honest with you. And not only can they do a little bit better, they can do a little bit better. They can do considerably better. And what I mean by that is this. Tommy Lloyd, again, I think it's fair to say at this point that Lloyd, like I said, he's a great coach, but I think the recruiting is a little questionable there. But when you only have one guy in Jack Murphy that really recruits, I think that's a little bit of an issue. I don't really know what the other coaches do. I don't know what Ricky Foy does. I don't know what Steve Robinson does. And that's a little bit of an issue, and you're missing out on kids. Give you an idea. And again, I much prefer Tommy Lloyd to Sean Miller. Anybody that knows me knows how true that statement is. But when Sean Miller had a staff, you generally knew that you had guys in Joe Pasternak, in Book Richardson, insert joke, Phelps. You knew exactly what you were getting with those dudes because they were all recruiting. They all had their own region. They all had their priority recruits. So Arizona fans were never generally left off guard right there. But the problem is, so again, that works. The problem, though, with Lloyd's strategy is he is not hitting on these kids. He's not getting the few kids that he wants. He has to get a guy like Ryan Nembhard. You prioritized Ryan Nembhard from day one, which is totally cool. And I mean, and you thought you were going to get him. When you don't get him, what's the plan? And again, it can't be the point guard from Macedonia that nobody knows about but could be good. Those players are fine. No problem with it at all. But they can't be in lieu of. They have to be in addition to at this stage. And that, I think, is where a little bit of the rub lies, especially with Arizona fans, is that, again, Arizona fans are used to getting big-time players here. You're used to getting five-star recruits, and that's just not happening right now. And I think Lloyd's got to revamp his recruiting strategy a little bit. If you don't really get it, if you don't really get it, or you're not having the kind of success you need to be able to get with kids, then I think at some point you got to start changing your approach a little bit. And there's nothing necessarily wrong with that, but it's something that I think Lloyd's going to have to do. I'm curious to see if he actually ends up doing it. I honestly have no clue if he's going to end up doing it, but Nembhard is a terrible, terrible loss for Arizona, because so much of what Arizona was, trying to do is based off of what, is based off having that other guard there in the system, having Kylan Boswell, having Ryan Nembhard, having dudes like that we're all going to be able to make. They're going to be able to make plays off the bounce. Now you don't have that. Now you got Kylan Boswell, and that to me is the issue. Kylan Boswell is going to be a dynamic player for sure. But what would have really accentuated him, would have been the ability to have a guy that can also take some pressure off of him and be able to do much of the same stuff. And you can't really do that with. You can't really do that now. Again, I'm totally fine with Pella at the two guard or the small forward. That's fine. But I needed somebody that could handle the ball. And now at this stage in the game, especially when you're late, dudes like a Raekwon Battle, and guys like that. That's cool. But again, those are more of Courtney Ramey types. And again, there's nothing wrong with Courtney Ramey. Big fan of Courtney Ramey. Thought he did a good job here. But you need difference makers. You need guys that really move the needle. And so far, Arizona hasn't been able to do that. And they really haven't shown much of a capacity to be able to do that. And I think that's where the concern rub comes in. And I think that's where people are, rightfully antsy. Now, again, I don't think anybody's saying that you need to bring in just 5-star kids. But you need to be able to get guys that are in that 45 to you need to be able to get guys that are in that 45 to 70 range. And they just haven't been able to do that. And that's going to be, if you can get guys like KJ Lewis all up and down your class, that's great. And again, we like KJ on this show, great deal. 6'4" athletic kid. And not only is he athletic, there's a lot of room for upside. But I do think that, you got to get a class full of those guys. And you can't, again, and let's talk about the international route for a second here. I know that Lloyd has made his bones internationally. Totally get that. Totally understand that. But at some point that seems to also be kind of a catch-all, because at this stage of the game at Arizona, I like Big Henry. I think Henry Vasar is going to be great. I think, fans are writing him off a little bit too early. I think they're being foolish right there. But I'd also, with Big Henry, though, you also know that, it's going to take a little bit of time. Adama Ball was obviously a miss right there. Philly B, I wish nothing but the best for Philly B. I hope Philly B becomes an All-American in the first pick in the draft and rubs this in my face, but I don't have a ton of faith that Philly B is ever going to be that dude either. So that's kind of where we're at in the grand scheme of things here, is that you can't miss out on all the domestic kids and then go with that. I mean, that's just the way it is. You don't leave yourself any margin for error. I also think too that if you're Arizona, you got to understand that yes, you're Arizona and you are a brand name, but you don't walk in the gym and you don't walk in the gym and people are like, oh man, it's John Calipari or it's Mike Krzyzewski, where that's your immediate in. You don't have that kind of gravitas. So you have to be able to work kids. You have to be able to recruit them at an early stage. And if you don't recruit them at an early stage, a lot of times you're going to get lost because again, Nembhard is a guy. Nembhard is a guy that he was a must get. You have to get Ryan Nembhard. There's just no other way around it, and you didn't get him. So now, what's the next move for Arizona? You got Carter Bryant coming up, and you got Carter Bryant coming up, and that you got to be able to get him. Top 5 kid in the country, and he fits a lot of boxes. He doesn't totally remove the sting of Nembhard, but he at least makes things a little bit easier. You mark him in there with Jamari Phillips, and it becomes better. But we're kind of at the stage though now where a lot of people have some questions, and you know what? It's right to have questions. Again, you can still be like me. You can be all in on Tommy Lloyd. I am, but you also can say, yeah, but there's also some real concerns right here about Tommy Lloyd and about how the recruiting is going. So again, that is okay. You can have one of the both. You don't have to just question Tommy Lloyd and say, yeah, or you don't have to just say, well, I support Tommy Lloyd, therefore I support everything that he's doing. No. And you can sit there and say, you know what? I support Tommy Lloyd. I support him overall for the program, but I would like to see X, Y, and Z done. And if you could then that's fine. But we're going to talk though a little bit more about the staff here in just a second, and what I would do. But first, we got to talk about Built Bar. You look at Built Bar, you look around the country, you look around and you look at the strong people out there, and I think it's fair to say that they probably consume Built Bar. Now, what makes Built Bar so great is that I think that the best thing you could say about Built Bar is that when I'm done working out at the gym, I don't want to have some pasty chalk shake or anything like that. I want to be able to have something that tastes good. And Built Bar is here for you. Built Bar says, we are here to the rescue. We are going to make this one happen for you. And they have done it, and they have rescued many people like myself. They can rescue others as well. So again, check it out, Built Bar. It makes my workout fun to be able to get through during the day. It can do the same thing for you. Check it out, Built Bar. All right, let's take a quick break. We'll be right back with you. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now we're going to talk about recruiting strategy because, again, I like Jack Murphy, Arizona associate head coach. I am a big fan of Jack Murphy, but at the same time, I do think that the other guys, I need to know what they do. I need to know what they do and because again, these guys are being paid to recruit, to be able to do stuff. Tommy Lloyd's a good X's and O's coach. I have a lot of faith in him and as kind of that game day dude. Like I said, I don't know what Steve Robinson does. Is he a lead recruiter? But is he a lead recruiter? Is he a guy who is going to be the strategist? I don't know what his role is. And that's, I think you got to figure out what exactly. Ricky Foy, kind of the same thing. And honestly, are these really the guys that are connecting with, these kind of recruits? I could be wrong, but I don't see it. And that I think is a little bit of the issue right there. I think that the one thing though, that if you're an Arizona fan, you got to look at and you got to say to yourself is, what should we be able to get at Arizona? And the thing is, at Arizona, I believe that you should be able to recruit at a high level. Again, I don't need Arizona to be able to be bringing in the DeAndre Aytons, the Aaron Gordons, all those guys that are top 3, top 4 prospects. But I mean, I would like it. But I think, as the great Jody Ayler put out there, that's not generally the turnstile isn't generally the easiest thing to be able to win at the highest level. And I think John Calipari has proven that right now. But I need a mix. I need a mix of elite level kids who, maybe the 1 5-star in a class, but then I need them surrounded by top 50 to 75 guys. And that is what's not happening. And I think that's what's upsetting, or at least concerning to a number of people, is that really isn't happening. And I think that Arizona fans would like to see that and say, hey, get some guys in here that you can develop as well. And if you get guys in there that can develop as well, then then I think I think that's fair to say that, you got something in the roster. But the one question about it, though, again, will always be, if you don't hit on the players that you prioritize, that is always going to be somewhat of an issue. And quite frankly, it should be a little bit of an issue right there, because again, this is a place that I don't think you need to go with that strategy. When you're at Arizona, you can recruit and you can get the best. You don't have to just say, all right, we're only going to go for a couple kids. You can't really, you only need to go for a couple kids. That I don't get, because again, you look at the top 75 players in the country. You mean to tell me that you can't find you can't find 5 or you can't find me 15 dudes. You can't find me something like that. That to me is a little bit of an issue. It can't just be 5 or 6 guys. And I think the one thing about this is that Arizona, we're kind of at the stage right now where Tommy Lloyd's got to be able to make Tommy Lloyd's got to be able to make the next move. And by the next move, I mean, he's got to be able to say, all right, I got to be able to do this. I got to be able to do that. And I think that's going to start with getting a little bit more of a focus in on recruiting. And because you got to be able to get players. You can't just be relying on bit guys. And I think that hopefully this is a learning experience for Tommy Lloyd, because again, I'm still all in on Lloyd, but you got to be able to close these type of deals. All right, let's take a quick break and we'll talk about what this means. Thanks for keeping it locked on, Wildcats. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, what does this mean going forward then for Arizona? I think the one thing you got to look at is, I think the one thing you got to say to yourself is, what's that next move then? Is Tommy Lloyd going to be able to make the next move? And I don't know. Again, we're going to find out a lot about him, because again, I think he's a very, very good coach. There's no doubt about it. But sometimes coaches got to make, uncomfortable situations right here. And I think that's a spot where Arizona, or where Tommy Lloyd's going to have to do that. Luke did it. Again, Lloyd had multiple Final Fours under his belt and said, you know what, after a couple first-round losses, all right, we got to get more to an up-tempo guard type situation here. And he did it, and it worked. So again, Mike Krzyzewski, when he won his last national championship, Mike Krzyzewski, a strict proponent of going zone, not only went zone, but went zone almost the entire season. And that is definitely not something that Mike Krzyzewski, of all people, is known for. So again, the great ones have done it. Tommy Lloyd can do it as well, but he needs to do it. That is basically where I come down on the grand scheme of things. We'll obviously have a lot more about this coming up the next few days, because again, this is going to be on everybody's mind, as it rightfully should. But on that note, it's still awesome to be an Arizona Wildcat fan. Back the A. We will be back with you tomorrow again. Have a great weekend. And again, we'll be back with you on Monday. hopefully talking some good news. You got Carter Bryant coming up here in a live, or he's going to be announcing here. Hopefully Arizona can get in on him, and then things start to feel a little bit better. All right. I'm your host, Mike Luke. Have a great rest of your weekend. You have been listening to Locked On